you are paying attention, I'm back actually in my regular studio because it's only like 68 degrees here today outside of Philly. So I could be in my normal space, which is fine. I also get more exercise because I'm standing, which is nice. But I am excited to be back for skipping lunch at my normal time on Thursdays at noon. And today I have a very special guest. Actually, we might have a surprise guest coming on in a little bit. So I'm going to be skipping my normal around the hobby segment today. I'll do a video on that in a little bit, just because I do have some things I want to talk about. But I want to introduce you all to a good friend of mine on the internet. It's very strange to have friends on the internet that we don't meet in person, but this is John Fredericks. John, how you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's awesome to have you on. I already have a comment. Let's see what we got. Good afternoon, Mage's Musing. Audio is crackling. Not sure if it's my speakers or your mic. Guys, are you here? Or John, are you hearing my audio crackle?
Well, give me a second because I'm hearing, I got to put on the YouTube audio.
You're putting on the YouTube audio. Okay, we're going to, technical difficulties live on air. That's always good. So Mage, I don't know if it's your speaker or not. I'm plugged into my normal setup, so I'm not sure what would be crackling. I can try to plug my thing back in a little more. But John, you are the publisher of the wonderful game. I'm going to try to plug in my stuff.
Hold on a second. I'm going to get the copy right here.
Sounds bad on my end as well. Everyone's. I don't know what to do. Earlier. So it's your sound is bad too. So it's got to be something that's going on with EV Mooks. So we'll see. Maybe my recording will be better because we're hearing each other okay. Sorry guys, we'll try to work through it. Maybe it'll catch up. But so you published some cool modules for old school. And the one that I had highlighted a couple weeks ago was the Dwarven Pickup Truck. Move that over in front of your face because you're only half the screen at this point. There you go. This is a really cool, like a concept of a pickup truck in a fantasy game is a new idea. So first off, let's talk. You've been on this in the hobby space for a while. What first got you into TTRPGs as just the hobby that you wanted to play in?
Well, I mean, given my gray hair, I think you can probably make some guesses. And I was thinking about this before I came on. I really think it was the Rankin Bass, The Hobbit. If you
know, okay,
was on
yeah.
TV, you know, way back. I don't know when it was. Late.
It was on every Thanksgiving. I watched it.
Yeah, early '80s, something like that. And then all of a sudden, this new game, Dungeons and Dragons, is getting some airtime. You know, and back then you were really reading about it in the newspaper occasionally, or seeing maybe something on TV. So like I said, probably I got into it like a lot of other people when I was, somewhere late middle school, and then from there, it was really exciting because the FASA Star Trek came out, and I loved that. I played that for years, and I ran it. It was different. You were kids, so it wasn't like an every week campaign the way maybe you do as an adult. But I ran that every chance I could get. And then the West End game, Star Wars. And then probably like everybody else, you have to adult for a while. You have to get your degrees, and you get married, and you have kids and all that. And then all of a sudden, I kind of was, I never really, like, I was always buying books and reading them. But, with the internet, somewhere maybe around 2010, 2012, then I started to play online.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
And I haven't stopped since. So that's just, without the internet, I wouldn't be able to do it continually the way I am now. You
were playing online like before VTTs were a thing then.
We were playing.
How were you playing?
Yep. I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's okay. How are you playing?
Yeah, I had a website. I think it was on Weebly where I posted characters. And, nowadays you'd do it through a Google Docs or something.
Weebly. Oh my gosh.
It's just a free website thing. So I typed up the characters, had them up there for everybody, and they could print them out if they wanted. And we used an online whiteboard called Twidla, which is still around.
So you're just drawing the map like you were just using a battle board in front of you, or?
I did that for the first few times, and then I figured out, oh no, wait, you can upload images and you could have tokens. But it's not like the way it is now with Roll20 and other VTTs, where you can link your hit points and do macros and things like that. So folks were playing it, rolling at their desk, and I don't know. I sometimes I miss that.
Okay, that's interesting. Does John, Eric, you are so fixated. Eric asked about this last week. Do you remember an old PC game called Wizardry? It was on the Apple II.
Yeah, no, I didn't have an Apple II, so I wouldn't have remembered that.
You're still striking out, Eric. You're going to have to get me information on that.
Yeah, I'll have to Google it or take a look at it sometime.
There you go. Guys, I turned off my background noise reduction, so I'm hoping my sound is a little bit better. We sound fine inside the green room in the background, so I don't know what's going on. It's got to be something with EV Mooks throwing it out to YouTube at this point. So John, you were running the game and are you still basically running more online than in person at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. Now, maybe once or twice a year, like a buddy and came down and he and his child, my son, we played. But I also run the Dungeons and Dragons club at our school, at my high school.
Okay.
Because I'm a high school teacher. So about every other week. The problem is that our club period is only about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So they're really short sessions. And because it's kids, it can be a little choppy. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there. Like I remember one time I'm all set to run and then there's other activities that they have to go to.
Something shiny showed up and they had to go.
Or they have to study for a math test.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher. I can't say, oh no, don't learn the quadratic formula.
It's D&D. It's math. You're good.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah. But they really, I have to support. No, you really do need to pass your math test.
So what eventually got you into wanting to publish these things? We will affirm this.
I saw other people doing it on DriveThrough. And also, I illustrated a few children's books and even wrote and illustrated a couple myself. They're still on Amazon.
Okay.
And so that kind of got me in the publishing thinking end of things.
All right.
And the other children's books were for a friend of mine. And I was really doing the layout and the publish. I was uploading it to Kindle Direct Publishing and all that. So I was trying to take that same experience and move it over. And now I'm trying to do print things.
Okay.
Like I only have 2 in print.
Yes.
Everything else is on DriveThrough and is PDF. And
let me
print takes a little longer.
Let me see if I can pick up your I just revealed our
secret guest.
Our secret guest. We're going to remove it. We're going to get rid of
him.
You
can.
Remove from scene. Go away, secret guest. So here is there's your materials that are on DriveThroughRPG. You have a number of them. What are the 2 ones that are actually currently in print? It's the Dwarven Pickup Truck, and what's the other one?
Yeah, and the Sky Tree.
The Sky Tree. Okay. So where do you get these ideas from? For the Dwarven Pickup Truck, you have 4 floating discs, and then the Sky Tree is another kind of, off kilter a little bit.
Yes.
They're strange adventures in a good way. Where do you come up with these ideas?
Yeah, I don't know. Because the thing is, some of my adventures are a little more straightforward, but I don't want to just do, here's another goblin layer.
Okay.
There's a million of them out there. And
yeah.
I'm sure Creative DM can do some fun things with them, but something different. Like the Sky Tree there was a Larry Niven had a book, The Integral Trees. And it was about these giant trees that were kind of an ecosystem around a star. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought, well, what if you had one in a fantasy world? And, kind of like the Flying Dutchman, occasionally it passes over a village or a town or something.
Yeah. Okay. And go ahead.
Yeah, and then the pickup truck is probably more, kind of sort of steampunky, but not really steampunk. It is definitely more fantasy and just, I think if dwarves were going to bring something to market, they'd make some kind of truck.
I just love the fact that basically the game is, dude, where's my car? Is the adventure.
Yeah, because
yeah, I keep expecting Ashton Kutcher to show up. Like, dude, where's the car? I don't know what's going on. No. And so these are modules you play with your party. Do you set them up for the party first and then publish them, or how does that work out?
That has happened. Yeah, both of these. In fact, let me just give a little quick shout out. I have my Thursday night group is just spectacular. A lot of these guys have been with me for long times. I think one of them, Earl, has been with me like a decade, and some of them have been with me for a number of years. So a lot of times I'll sort of, if I sneak it in. Now it's not always in the exact same format because when you're putting it into your campaign, you have to, weave it into the story somehow.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but it's really good for me because it gives me a chance to see the holes. When you write, like even as a DM, you write something, you write the scenario. Oh, they're going to do it this way. And then they don't. So yeah. So how and that's okay. And then so how do I don't say patch that hole, but how do I take care of? Okay, well, what if they do this or what if they do that?
You want some guidelines if they go off on their own somewhere. My favorite story of that one time, and I think I've actually said this during one of my episodes of this, is I had a whole thing where for like 5 sessions, the party looked like they were going one direction. So I kept on building up to that and describing that. I had a whole flow chart of how like a major battle could go. And I went, we don't want to do that. We're going to go over here and go to like this pub. I'm like, all right. And they were looking for some locals. And so I'm like, yeah, you met, there's 4 older ladies that are off in the corner. And just on the fly, they met the Golden Girls.
Okay.
So that was an interesting time. Actually, I think I said that last one. That was my favorite moment of like, we're just going to go off and around. It's like, fine, it's going to get ridiculous then, which is my favorite. King Eric of All has a question for you. Question, are dwarves the only ones who have pickup truck, or is their entire industry centered around making vehicles? Are the elves secretly making their own vehicle to compete with the dwarves?
Well, yeah, right now,
go ahead.
Right now, there's just one. It's kind of like, the artifact. They haven't scaled it up into full, Detroit production yet.
Yeah.
And the elves aren't making their own thing, but I have, they're kind of a tiefling race, although I renamed them. And they're in the Dwarven Pickup Truck, and they're working on skyship.
Oh, okay. So you're going to skyship it. Okay.
Yeah, and they kind of function as almost like the Klingons.
Gotcha.
They're a recurring villain, and they cause trouble. And we had an exchange officer for a while too, because I thought that would be interesting. There was a Next Generation episode, or like Worf on the Next Generation, to see how the players.
The Klingons.
Not the elves, but the tieflings, like the devil.
Tieflings are the Klingons. Okay, they're eating Dach. It's good. Now we've gone true nerd at this point. We just said Gach, and we actually knew what we were talking about. It's the Golden Girls are succubi in disguise. Thank you for being a friend. Mage, you're strange, and I like you. My gosh, if you ever look at the chat and you want to laugh during the middle of the session, look at King Eric's comments in the chat, because he often has me trying to keep a straight face. But you do in Dwarven Pickup Truck, you do have mechs, right?
Well, yeah, the big bad guys are kind of making almost a like a transformer pickup truck.
And it's made out of. It's really cool looking in the drawing.
I have to. I forget. And that. Yeah, here it is. I don't know how well this will show on the camera.
Go ahead, pull it over to get it in for your face.
Am I
That's the tiefling guy. Yeah.
There's the tiefling,
and the mecha guy is on the side there. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's sort of like a truck golem, is the way I was thinking of him.
And you do all the artwork.
Yes, I do.
You do true. So it's a one-stop shop for you, which is great.
I'm the artist, the writer, the editor, the ditch digger, everything.
The ditch digger. All right. And for folks who want to find you, look up Sharp Mountain Games on DriveThroughRPG.
Yep.
You can see there's a whole bunch of stuff that's on there. You have another one that you're working on coming out in print soon, right?
I do, and I don't know if I can share a screen with you. If that would.
I don't know if you're allowed or not. Let's find out. If we break it, we break it. It's fine.
Share screen. Chrome tab. Now I want a window. Here we go. Let me try this.
This will be fun. First time for everything.
And I got to scroll up on YouTube and see.
I have to add it to the screen, to the scene. So let's see what we got. There we are. There you are.
Okay.
Yay! I'm gonna crop this up.
Yeah, there we go.
Nothing
Wonderful.
like watching
Thank you.
Stuff live in the middle of the scene. There we go.
So this is the next one, and it's on the way.
Okay.
And it's the Star Mermaid, and I think you can see it's kind of a Spelljammer sort of thing.
Yep.
And you can see my wooden starship there. Looks a lot like the Enterprise. And
very nice.
They're supposed to rendezvous with a Star Mermaid on a asteroid lighthouse, but of course these things never go according to plan.
Very nice.
Yeah, there's.
When are you hoping to have that? I'm going to pull that out just so we can see your faces again. When are you going to have that out in print, you think?
I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks, maybe next 2-3 weeks.
Okay,
I have to
cool.
do some map work, and sometimes that's a little slow for me.
Yep, and you do have VTT versions of the maps I saw in your drive-through.
Yeah, and
At
there's
least
some
for
on
one of
Roll.
them?
There's some on Roll20 too.
Okay,
So I have
which is
to.
very nice.
I have to take a look at that to see if I can do the maps also and do a map pack separately or something.
Gotcha.
Like, so if people don't want to buy the module, but they still want like a science fiction kind of map, they can do that.
And there's people moving church pews down below me.
Okay.
which is they're probably angry that I have to leave now. I have a thing I scheduled for lunch. So now these are all designed for what system?
They're old school, so I have it on the front, basic fantasy compatible, Labyrinth Lord. So I try to give both the armor class in ascending and descending format.
Gotcha.
But really, if you're playing anything old school, Castles and Crusades, or
you should be fine.
Osric or AD&D or it should all work.
But you're involved in the Basic Fantasy project.
I've done a lot of artwork for them.
Okay. So
and I've written a few things for them too. There's if you go to I think most of my stuff's on the showcase page.
Gotcha.
I haven't written anything like super long for the downloads, but some character classes and a few things. And I think that's our segue, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it, because we do have our surprise guest that we already revealed, unless the people are tuning in late. But it's kind of an important thing that John is working with Basic Fantasy RPG. I think I've contributed all of one edit to the project, which is more than a lot of people. But they've just come out with their 4th edition, so we're really happy to invite Chris Gonnerman on as our surprise guest today. How you doing, Chris?
Well, I'm doing pretty good.
It's awesome to have you on.
Got a load off my mind and off my plate now, so that's nice.
Yeah, I've been trying to get you on. You're like, I want to wait until we get it on. So
yeah,
which is nice. So it's been a long slog, and this all the whole journey, because you had never really had an intention of having a 4E. I mean,
no,
really, because
the third edition, release 107, was supposed to be it.
Okay.
It was not supposed to ever be anything else. There was a possibility that somebody might find an error or two, and it might eventually force me to put an R108 out. But we were done. We were done. It was did. We had our final game. We didn't need anything else. But I believed what we all believed, that the OGL was forever. And then all of a sudden we discovered the OGL is not forever. So there you go.
Yeah. And I remember that when they announced that they were going to revoke it, I remember messaging you and saying, what does this mean? And I guess it was like 24 hours. You were first like, it doesn't matter anything. And the next one is like, we're redoing the whole thing.
Well, initially I actually went back and checked this and verified that the original authors of the OGL believed it was forever. They did not intend it ever to be revoked. But they neglected to actually put that in legal words.
Because it wasn't a thing at the time.
Well, it could have been. They could have made it more clear in the legalese. They just didn't.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was their intent to make the legalese as short as possible, or if they just overlooked it. But they didn't believe it would ever be withdrawn, because they didn't leave a way specifically that they thought to withdraw it. But Wizards got enough lawyers on to find something that they thought they could pick apart.
Okay.
And the thing about it is, the thing that people still don't understand sometimes is the OGL is not really a license. I don't care what it says on the label. The OGL is a peace treaty.
Yeah, it's a promise we won't sue you.
A promise we won't sue you. And that's the problem at this point. Whether or not they can successfully cancel the OGL.
Mm-hmm.
If you continue to use it and they decide that they want to cancel it, you're involved in a legal fight that you didn't want to be in and that you probably can't afford. Because I don't bet John's got a lot more cash out of his stuff than I have out of mine.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to have you move to your left a little bit. You're being blocked by your lower third. Oh. There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
We want to see your beautiful face.
I'll just lean back like I was when I was waiting. Okay. But no, that's the thing. It's and we can't trust them. We know we can't trust them.
Right. They went to shoot the moon, and everybody screamed. I mean, it was a collective howl of rage.
Mm-hmm.
But then this amazing thing happened. You announced we're going to have to we're switching to Creative Commons. We're going to have to rip literally all language from the 3.5 SRD out. Correct it, like if I missed anything, you are going to have to rename all the spells, rename all the monsters.
Okay, so that's not actually true. We thought that initially. We thought that certain names might be protected, and there are some names that we could consider protected that we avoided.
Okay.
But we thought we had a situation where we'd have to change the names of things. We thought we had a situation where we would have to change, not just removing the SRD text, but actually renaming a bunch of stuff. But and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to make a pronouncement on this. But I had yes, King Eric, you're right. But I had a lawyer explain to me how you can or can't copyright things. Descriptions of something that are just plain text. Rust monster is clear and obvious. There's no other way to describe it. There's no easier way to describe a monster that rusts things than rust monster.
Interesting.
So that really falls in a category where you can easily dispute the copyright status. You can easily say, you don't have any art there. There's nothing artistic there. Now, if I had copied a bunch of background material about, even if I rewrote it in my own words, a bunch of background material about how the elves created these things or whatever, then that would be a violation. Very funny, mate. Somebody actually suggested that. We didn't use it.
I remember that in the forum. I saw it.
But we thought we were going to rename things initially, and we did actually start that. So we created Ironbane, for example, which is statistically very similar to the original monster, but all the art is different. The physical appearance of the monster and everything is different. And Martin Serena did a drawing for it.
It's awesome. I showed that to my party, and they went, "Wait, it's a fast rust monster?" I'm like, "Yeah."
It's actually not as fast as it looks, but it scares the living daylights out of fighters who think it is.
Yep.
The Ironbane stayed because once we discovered we didn't have to rename things, we started putting things back. I had excellent art from Martin Siesto, a different Martin, for the original Rust monster, and I wanted to keep it. So we kept that. So we have both monsters. There are several situations. The Barkling is the most obvious example of that, where we thought we were going to have to redo the kobolds because we thought the descriptive information might qualify as art, but it's too thin. There's not enough. A reptilian dog-headed humanoid is still fairly obvious.
Right.
So we decided to go ahead and stick with it, and I think pretty much everybody else who's in this space is doing the same thing. Once we got a grip on that. But we still had to remove all that SRD text, and the team that just appeared out of nowhere like a magic trick. Yeah. And just showed up and started doing it. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I mean, it was so for folks that might not be aware, because we talk about Basic Fantasy being this retro clone. It is a fully open source project. Like, you can download the actual document and edit it. Like, it's nothing is held back. And it was cool to watch it because someone who had come out of open source circles, it was cool to watch that ethos actually permeate through it.
It's not actually quite exactly that way.
All right.
The text is all the way you just described it. All the text is under Creative Commons.
The art you have licensed, right?
The current text is under Creative Commons. Attribution, share alike. It's about as open as I think we can afford to be and try to have something. But the art isn't. All the art is licensed to me personally. And I can put this out in the video. It's the only branding control I have.
Right.
Because we have people come along occasionally and they say, well, why can't we just take this and stick some of the supplements in there, make our own game? Fine, do that. Print it out for yourself. But I don't want competing versions in the marketplace to confuse people.
Right. Okay.
So the artwork is, legally speaking, the artwork is licensed to me, and it remains the property of the original artist, but it's licensed to me for use in the project. And someone who wanted to reproduce this book completely, but change some things, would have to get all those artists to consent. At least one of them is dead.
That would be difficult.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But it's a situation, and they're going to have difficulty getting a license for all that artwork. And I'm fairly confident Can't just bang the door. Fairly confident that that some of them, like John, for instance, might not just say sure.
Yeah, and one thing I can throw in with that is, like I've given art for BFRPG, but then I've also reused it in some of my own publications.
Right.
So,
That's perfectly within the agreement we have.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is if some guy calls you up and says,
oh yeah,
"Hey, I'm going to clone Chris's game, and we're going to stick a bunch of extra stuff in there. Can I use your artwork?"
no.
So because the artists are mostly believers also in the project.
Right, they're part of the project. That's why they donate the art in the first place.
That's right. The magic of this isn't the game. The magic is the community.
Right, but that's what happened. I mean, the community came together and said, "Hey, we like our game, and we're gonna make this demonstrate just that it is an open source project." And I think that's one of the cool things is that, and when I describe it to folks, I always describe it as a project, not as a product. And that's confusing for people. They don't quite get it.
Well, I tell you what is really confusing for people that I'm running into a lot. Yeah, it's come up fairly frequently. There are a lot of people who cannot wrap their minds around the fact that this is not a commercial operation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we sell you books. You can buy all kind of books. We got them, but I even sell first edition.
Uh-huh.
But we're not doing it for a profit. It's not a business. We don't have deadlines. We don't have any of the stuff that a real business would have. We're not trying to make a profit. I am actually doing fairly well on my promotional fund because the burst of sales that happened in January when they thought everything was going to get pulled off the market, I use the funding, the small amount of profit that I make off the game to fund promotional stuff. Of course, I need that now because I bought 20 copies of the rules right before the OGL debacle. So I now have a pile of 3rd edition books in my house. I will probably give them away at a convention, but
there's a school somewhere that could use them, Chris. So,
awesome. But that's the thing is it's not a for-profit business. We're not doing a business. I don't have business concerns. We had a guy just recently on the forum who was sharing a bunch of adventures, and he'd written them and he put them out under Creative Commons, non-commercial, no derivatives. No. We won't do no derivatives, and I really want non-commercial. Non-commercial means I couldn't put it in a book to sell it. I couldn't combine his adventures with others and make him part of the project.
Right.
He's saying, here's my stuff. I used your stuff to make this stuff. Here's my stuff, and I'm going to give it away, and I'm a nice guy because I do that. But you can't do anything to it. You can't correct my errors. You can't reformat. You can't expand it. You can't do anything to it.
Right, because no derivatives means
nada. Right. You're not really sharing the way we mean sharing when we talk about sharing.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. I got a whole blog post about that. Sharing your stuff with people is scary, but you got to do it. If you want to build a community, you have to open the doors.
Mm-hmm. And you built one, which is really kind of cool. John, you've donated artwork to this. Like, how did you first hear about the project, John?
I was looking for, I don't know, like the retro clones were starting to be a thing, and I was looking at Basic Fantasy and another one, and I said, I'm going to get Basic Fantasy. And
okay, stop. What was the other one?
Labyrinth Lord.
Okay, all right.
Which is like a project that's in limbo right now.
If Labyrinth Lord had existed before I wrote Basic Fantasy, I might never have written Basic Fantasy. Labyrinth Lord is pretty good. Basic Fantasy is still the game I want to play.
I got a breaking scoop. Chris said he would actually. I could headline this now. Chris Goneron says he'd rather play Labyrinth.
I've said it before. No one was listening. But no, it's a good game. There's not a damn thing in the world wrong with it.
There you go.
And a lot of the other retro clones are good stuff too. One thing I can throw in that maybe I now appreciate more even back than I did back then is it's so perfect for online games because I have people, I want to play a barbarian. I want to play a sorcerer. I want to play this or that. I say, go on a website, find it. And they do.
Have fun and play. Go.
It's just, there's a lot of other retro clones out there, and I'm not, or OSR type games, and I even own some of them for my reading pleasure. But I almost can't see why BFRPG isn't like the first go-to, because it's like the lingua franca, and wherever anybody is, they can have whatever they want. if you can't find it in the showcase or the workshop, I'd be surprised. There's not much missing.
There are a lot of the classes. Classes are the fastest way to screw your game up. Mm-hmm. Classes are absolutely the fastest way to permanently mess up a campaign to the point that you have to start over. Because once you let a player play a class, if you discover that class has problems, you're asking them to give everything up. If you give them a magic item, it turns out to be OP, you can retrofit it and say, oh well, it's got charges and the charges have run out. Okay. And the bad magic item's gone, and they got to have fun with it, but it's gone. But you haven't attacked their character. But when you say, well, this character that you're playing that you've grown to love and you spent time on is overpowered or broken or whatever, and it needs to go. So we're really, really careful about classes. I pretty much won't accept classes for the downloads page anymore. Because they acquire too much of a cachet of officialness if they end up there. And it's too hard for me to play test everything and make sure that it's good. So we just don't.
Monk, we're looking at you.
No kidding. Many of the so-called advanced classes have issues. So anyway.
All right, we got a couple of things on here. And I agree with both of you on that. I love that you keep it the basic, and that's my tables are only the 4 basic classes and the 4 basic races. Though I do have Bizrin as NPCs. But let's see a couple things. Because King Eric wanted to know for John and Chris, what games got you into role playing? And John, you had talked a little bit.
Yep.
So we'll let Chris go first, and then I'll go to John.
Oh, Moldave Cook, Basic and Expert, 1981.
Yes, we remember when those were classes.
I received the basic box set for Christmas after basically begging for it because I saw it in a science fiction magazine. I knew nothing about it. Mm-hmm, I ran games as a dungeon master without ever having played. I was absolutely awful. Uh-huh. But I have I have one player from 1982 still in my in-person game, so it can't have been too bad, I guess.
That's how many years?
He's old like me.
But how many years is that? That's
82.
40 years? 41 years?
41 years.
That's impressive.
Thank you. But that's where I started, and we played BX with metric ton of house rules. Okay. Through 82 and halfway through 83, which is the year I graduated, went off to college, and I thought, well, we're in college. So I bought Advanced D&D, and that's where I went from there.
Gotcha.
And we did Arcanum. We played a little bit of Talislana, but not using their setting, just using the rules. Talislana is bonkers crazy. Tried a whole bunch of games. We played a bunch of Marvel superheroes, which was a lot of fun.
I love Phase Rep Marvel superheroes. It's so much fun.
So now I want to hear John's answer.
Yeah, seriously, John, go ahead.
Well, stories like like we talked at the beginning. It was BX. I actually never graduated to AD&D. I just stayed basic when I ran. And then, like I said, Star Trek, and I should throw Star Frontiers in there as well.
Okay.
I played that a bit.
What did you say?
Star Frontiers.
Oh yeah, we played Star Frontiers a little bit. I have to admit, I don't like the rules mechanically.
It's the percentile you don't like, or the.
I don't mind percentile systems. I like RuneQuest, for example. Haven't played much of it, but I like RuneQuest. But no, I can't tell you. It's clunky.
Yeah.
It is clunky system.
It's clunky.
Because each skill is a different. You have to look up. It's a different base percentage, and
it's a clunky system with a clunky background, with a clunky mythos, with a fantastic war game attached to it. Mm-hmm. Nighthawks, playing Nighthawks just as a war game is amazing fun. It's a quick playing space combat game. It's just fun to do. We used to play scenarios. We play a scenario in an hour or two, just for fun. Just one friend of mine and I, or two friends and I, we would get together and play them. It was fun, but I didn't really care for the game mechanically. I wish I'd had the opportunity to play some Traveler. I played one time.
I never played that.
Traveler, so.
John, what else have you played? What else you got you in?
Well, those are the early ones, but thankfully, being online, especially during the lockdown, we were playing like sometimes even twice a week, like for the summer, and so I got to run Marvel superheroes, when I was 50. I got to play in Star Frontiers, which I had never gotten to play because I'm the forever DM.
Yeah.
So, and I've also run it's Starships and Spacemen, which is an OSR kind of Star Trek.
Okay.
And I'd say really the only difference on that is it's roll under, more like the Black Hack is or White Hack.
Okay.
But it runs really smoothly. Roll under runs really smoothly online.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, you know what? I collected. What I say is I collected as a kid. I never played. I didn't have anybody to play with. There were no geeks. Like there were no nerds around. So I had all these games. I think I might have done one session of Marvel superheroes and one session of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that was it.
We played Marvel in college, so.
Did you?
Yeah.
I wish I would have been able to, but I never had it. My first time playing an extended campaign was during the pandemic.
You asked John a question that you didn't ask me.
What?
You asked John how he got involved in basic fantasy. What you didn't ask was how I met John.
That is true. How did you meet John?
Online, as it were. And I'm not sure if he actually recognized this, but when he joined the forum and I saw him sign in and I saw T-Man, T-E-A-M-A-N as his handle, I'm going, wait a minute.
That was my old handle.
I read his webcomic. I already read the webcomic from end to end, every issue of that webcomic. It was funnier than you thought it was, I think.
Wait, what? Wait, you had a webcomic?
Yep. T-Man, the only superhero powered by T.
I never knew that, Chris. That's amazing to me.
Well, yeah, I knew who you were from that.
Is this still around?
I don't think it's still, the site is still extant.
But why is this not a graphic novel? We need T-Man.
Yeah, I have all, well, it's been several computers by now, so I'd have to like dig through it all and rescan it in, and then I wouldn't be happy with the art. I wouldn't be happy with.
I'm looking at Internet Archive now. T-Man. Yeah. You had a webcomic?
I think it was Webcomics Nation. Yeah.
It was like you and user friendly. That was it. Good job.
I have always been a big fan of webcomics. I follow a lot of them. There is material in webcomics that would never make it into print.
Oh, heck no.
And after I skip over the offensive material that would never make it into print, the rest of the stuff is kind of interesting. So, yeah, I follow some. There's a few that I've dropped out of, despite the fact that they were gorgeously drawn because they couldn't write stories. It's not just if you can draw, it's whether you can write a story that's interesting.
Can you do it in 3 panels? Yeah, that's important.
Well, a lot of them are more than 3 panels. I mean,
okay.
I followed several of them that were pretty substantial.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm a fan of a bunch of webcomics, and so he was just in the mix with other webcomics I was following at the time when I first got back into it. I used an RSS reader to keep track of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I follow Dave Kellett's Drive, which I think is an amazing piece of science fiction, and Freefall, which is, unfortunately, their RSS is broken, so I'm having to remember to go read it from time to time.
Gotcha.
And a bunch of other stuff. Those are both science fiction, but fantasy and just general weirdness.
Right. For the kids watching, RSS is real simple syndication. Let me just put that out for you. All right. So I still can't believe you wrote a webcomic, John. That's so cool. I want to see this. I want an example.
Like I said, I don't know that I don't think the site is still extant. So
it doesn't appear to be. I just looked.
I'm looking up. I have to find it. Yeah, I got to find it somewhere.
But it was a grind. It was hard to keep up with getting it out on a regular basis. What kind of tea?
Like any tea? Did it have to be Earl Grey? Like what kind of tea?
No, I think it was radioactive tea. Like Spider-Man.
He was always carrying a teacup around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Radio.
Well, thank you, Chris. At least that takes me back in the Wayback Machine.
I have learned new things. The only superhero powered by
I knew who he was when he popped up on the forum. I saw that name. It hadn't been that long since the last time I'd seen the webcomic, a year or two maybe, and I'm like, okay, wait, this has got to be the same guy. And the site was still working, and I went and double checked, and I'm like, okay, this is the same guy.
That was me.
That's absolutely fantastic. I love that, John. You were cutting edge, man. Do your kids know you're internet famous? Your students?
Yeah.
No, I keep it.
Okay, that's good.
I don't mix that. I try not to.
All right, I got a couple things from the chat. We'll get this the first. I don't want to forget. Someone wanted you to talk about Iron Falcon, Chris. We'll get to that in a second. But Mage wanted to know what was your inspiration, motivation that prompted you to write basic fantasy RPG.
Motivation was my BX books were falling apart.
Oh, really?
And
That simple?
2006, well, partly. 2006, I was still working with the Dragon's Foot team. I was their layout man for a lot of stuff. I did the layout for, like the first 10 or so of the Footprints e-zines. I did layout for several of their modules. I started out doing editing, which I guess I can say I'm moderately competent at editing, but then they discovered I could work the black magic required to make layout work. And it was black magic then. The software tended to blow up a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But I got through it, and we got and I did a lot of their layout and stuff, which is where I learned the skills necessary to actually write and put together these games as actual things.
Okay.
So that was part of it. I'd written for Footprints. I'd written a couple of alternate rules, optional things for BX, things that I found limiting in the game originally. And I was looking at getting a BX game going with my players. We played AD&D Second Edition. We'd wrapped the campaign, and I wasn't feeling it anymore.
Okay.
I wanted something more basic, but I never liked race classes. I'm sorry, I just don't. I want your heritage to be separate from your experiences. They talk nature, and that's what I'm talking about. I want them separate.
Yeah.
So I was already putting together a house rule for that, and I had created 5% principal tables for combat based on Len Lakofka's concepts from Old Dragon magazines, so that the combat tables didn't jump by more than 5% per step. If you stepped a level, you never got more than 5% boost, but on the other hand, you get boosts more frequently.
Okay.
As you advance through the combat and the saving throw tables. So I was already putting that kind of stuff together, and I started looking at, do something here. And I dug my BX books up, and they were falling apart, and I couldn't get BX books for my friends. They weren't available in PDF online yet, much less in print anywhere.
Yeah.
The only thing you could do is go on eBay and buy them vintage.
And then they'd be falling apart. So
they'd be falling. Well, even if they weren't falling apart, they'd be expensive.
Yeah.
And I looked at what the Trolls had done with Castles and Crusades, and I'm like, they didn't really go as far as I would have gone into the old school, but they made a step into it, and a tentative, nervous step into the OGL, and I'm like, well, what the hell? Let's just do it.
Okay.
And I took my house rule bits and I extended them, because actually they were laid out for 14 levels rather than 20 levels, and I wanted a 20 level game, so I had to rejigger all the tables anyway. They're all my creation.
Okay.
I had to redo a lot of stuff, but that's kind of where I started with that, and I was used to working on collaborative projects. So I shared what I had on Dragon's Foot and invited Dragon's Foot members to help if they wanted to. And many of those early contributors are not involved in the project anymore, but their membership is lifetime. I'll come back. But they moved on to things that suited them more, and I'm not surprised at that. But many people contributed. Another guy wrote the entire sections for Oil and Holy Water, for example.
Nice. Let me interject. What's Dragon's Foot? Because I'm not familiar with it.
Dragonsfoot.org. It's a forum site that is based in the UK that is principally focused on AD&D First Edition, but they have subsections for many of the other vintage games. Okay. And they have simulacrum games for them. And if you go out there, you'll find that I'm a global moderator named Salamariah, the same name I have every place else on the internet.
Okay.
I was a global mod. I was just one of many. I was the one who proposed the idea of a workshop.
Okay.
There were members who were coming into the forum in the general discussion area, and they were sharing game materials that they were creating as they were creating them. One in particular person was very prolific, and she was posting 5 or 6 new threads every day or two, and each one of them was a different work. And this led to a kind of an argument. The moderators were deleting or rehousing those threads, and she was mad, and they were mad, and we got into a discussion about it. And I said, there should be a place for people to share materials that they're creating.
Okay.
And I ended up moderating the workshop because of that. So,
All right, and when did you end up splitting off Basic Fantasy into kind of its own
Basic
project?
Fantasy there is a long thread on Dragon's Foot if you go dig for it, where we were actually developing Basic Fantasy from the very beginning. It was the release 2006.6, or what would be R6 under our current numbering system, was the first one shared with everyone. I shared earlier versions with a few individuals, but didn't share publicly until R6. And from there on, the development took place on Dragon's Foot. Even after I started my own forum, I continued doing the development there for a while, but eventually our forum took over and everything moved there.
Okay. It's fascinating to see just how
Dragon's Foot's a little more chaotic than the Basic Fantasy forum. Just for a warning, if you go there, it's a little more.
I'm now intimidated.
Well, yeah. What can I say? They have a different moderation style, and the fact that they don't have a limited focus means that they accumulate a lot of people with very different opinions about things, and that ends up being a little more chaotic. We have a very polite forum, but part of the reason for that is because we have a pretty strict rule about what you're talking about.
Right.
So it cuts the troubles down a lot.
You've kept the community together very, very well with that, which is not an easy task. When you get people who want to, because people do enjoy getting together to complain about other people.
Choose a bunch of moderators you can trust.
Okay.
Don't choose two guys and say, you're going to help me organize this site. Everybody you run into who seems to be sane and reasonable and spends too much time on the forum, you say, hey, you want to be a moderator? That's what keeps the Facebook group and the forum both pretty polite, is having a lot of people who will step in and put out a fire before it ever comes to my attention. That's it. And then keep your focus narrow. Stick to the topic. Don't just entertain discussions, for God's sake, about politics or religion. But beyond that, even a lot of other things can be divisive. We just don't entertain the discussions. Somebody wants to start a discussion about whether alignment systems are good or bad. We ain't got one of those. Y'all bye. See you later. We don't have an alignment system. We do have optional alignment rules in the supplements, and if anybody wants them, they're welcome to them. If they don't like them, they can make their own, but we're not taking other ones down.
Your alignment supplement was funny because in the opening, if memory serves, it says, like, I don't know why anybody would want this, but here it is. So,
Yep.
which it's like,
life is so much easier when you take it out.
You know what? I didn't know what to think about that when I first picked up Basic Fantasy RPG. I was like, no alignment, because I'm just used to it being there. It was so interesting to see the pushback against it. Well, then I won't know who this or that is and how they are. I'm like, but then you're free. Like the characters that you encounter and the characters that you play, their alignment is what they do. So that's it. I
get in this discussion a lot with people. And if that's their style of game, they're welcome to play another game. We're just not going to do that. Or they can use an alignment rule of their own or use one of the supplements, whatever. I don't care. It's their game. It's not my problem. But I'm not going to do that. I am not going to tie the hands of the game masters and the players any more than I need to make the game function. And alignment is tying your hands. Right now in my online group, there's an NPC traveling with the party, and he's a kobold.
Okay.
And he's not evil.
Oh, no.
Not necessarily good either. They did have to warn him not to eat the head of an enemy that they had collected for identification purposes.
As one does.
So kobolds canonically are just little dog-headed dudes, dog-headed reptilian dudes. And many people follow the Tucker's kobold rule, where kobolds are trap makers. I do like that. I do like the trap making kobolds. They make things interesting. My kobolds in my campaign can eat almost anything poisonous and not be affected.
Oh, that's fun.
We had an adventure where a bunch of fairly high-level guys came into a kobold village as they were working their way through what was admittedly a railroad. It's an in-game mechanical railroad, not an out-of-game, I'm saying you have to do it this way, but rather they literally, the rails are there. They can't go anyplace else. But they're following through this, and they come to this village, and the kobolds welcome them and invite them to a banquet, a huge banquet in their honor. And there's like hundreds of these kobolds. And everything at the banquet was poisonous except the mushroom pie. And the player characters were so paranoid that they cast Purify Food and Drink on every course.
I love it.
And the kobolds are like, why aren't you dying?
Look
Why
what's
aren't
going
you
on.
dead yet? You know, some of you should be laying on the floor already.
That's awesome. My Castles and Crusades group was my in-person group. They are friends with the kobolds. Like they had to go escort a rampaging or a kind of like their pet fire drake that got out and was eating the local sheep. So they're escorting the drake up to like the local kobold city so that they stop butting heads with humans. But they're hanging out with the kobolds. Like one of them is trying to learn how to speak it, so we have I created like a whole mechanic for him to learn this stuff. It's an absolute blast. And for some reason, in all of my worlds, bugbears end up in the restaurant industry.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I have no.
I'm not eating at a restaurant with a bugbear chef. I'm sorry, I don't know what's in the food.
So I was running. I did a 5e1 shot, and they left one bugbear alive. And so now I got to come up with a personality for this creature that they were probably supposed to kill because they were murder hobos. And so I just came up. He was Gregor, and he was just in this cult because he was trying to get away from war, but his real passion was to find exotic ingredients for the restaurant business.
Huh.
And so that he kept on popping up. He's Gregor the Finder. But then from there, like every one of my worlds, he's always popped up. There's a bugbear running a tavern. There's a bugbear running a barbecue joint. I don't know. It's just something that happened. John, what are some of your favorite creatures that you use?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm using kind of devil people, tiefling-ish. I don't call them that because WotC. But I like having the recurring villains. Maybe I should say that. I like maybe not necessarily any specific creature, but I like when kind of like Skeletor. He can get away at the end and then come back and pester them.
Yep. Okay.
And then usually like on the second or third, if they actually kill them, I think there's a lot of satisfaction for the party, or defeat them permanently. Usually they kill them. So I think maybe not so much any one specific creature, but a recurring villain, somebody you can bring back.
Who's your favorite recurring villain that you ever came up with?
Oh, I had character called the Autumn Queen many years ago who was trying to turn everything to fall, and this is not something I necessarily had her statted out. It wasn't like that. She was more a mystical force of things, and I think I was really able to string that along for a couple of years here and there. Drop her in when, and then we had it wasn't like every single week, and I think that was. It was one of my favorite campaigns overall that I've ever run to. But
it's like if she showed up, everybody knew everything was going to go wrong.
Yeah, they kind of knew where things were going bad, or that she was involved with things.
Gotcha.
So. That's fascinating. You should write something like that up for the forum.
All right.
I'd love to see it. That sounds interesting.
Bring John
like I
on.
say, she was
assignments. It's good.
She was more a mother nature than a force of nature, rather than a like I said.
Yeah.
Then here's the armor class, and here's the thing like that.
Well, yeah, no.
But I like that concept.
Interesting, though. Something we should talk about.
I really like that. Very good. Autumn
Queen may be back.
Please, that would be cool. All right, and Chris, someone wanted you to talk about Iron Falcon because you have 2 retro clones, and people always want to know why. Why do you have 2 retro clones?
I wrote this book. I'm going to put this over here so you can see it. Out of spite.
I love that line.
Out of spite.
It's my favorite.
Several years ago, it was 2014, I think, I had a person contact me on Facebook just to tell me that Basic Fantasy, 2014, the Basic Fantasy RPG was no longer on the Wikipedia page for retro clones. And I'm like, but we were like, depending on how you count it, the first or maybe the second, or one of the first. We were early, okay? How are we not there anymore? Well, so I went and I read their talk, where they discuss how they made the decisions that they made, and Basic Fantasy got demoted. Yes, it is. Thank you, mate. Basic Fantasy got demoted because it didn't clone a specific edition to some arbitrarily high level of accuracy, which is true. It doesn't. And then that made me mad. I'm like, I was there first, but now they're telling me I don't belong there anymore. About the same time, I had been trying to wrap my mind around the early editions of D&D. I can say it now.
Oh, yeah.
I wrap my mind around the mechanics of those early games, around how they worked and how they functioned and how they were meant to work. And I thought, well, there's a niche right there that no one has actually filled for a game that is set about where the game rules were in 1975.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I was looking at. And so I set out to start writing such a thing. And over the course of just a little over 1 month, I wrote the whole thing. The whole damn thing in just over a month. I don't know how the hell I did that, but excuse the language, but I don't know how I did that. It's impossible for me to figure out how that happened. I was motivated. Now, I was posting information about it on Dragon's Foot and on an OD&D forum. I forget the name of it, and then on Basic Fantasy forum. So I had it going to different audiences. I did have one guy tell me that I was a complete failure because I allowed player character half-elves to be clerics, and the original game didn't allow that. So I had completely failed, and he wasn't going to buy my game. Fine. It's not like I was caring about making money off of it. Although I do make a little more profit off the Iron Falcon stuff because I wrote all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I can make a profit off of it. No, so I had this situation where I just wrote this game. And so I commissioned a cover. All the interior artwork is public domain, but I did commission a cover from Al Cook, one of my absolute favorite artists. John, I love your stuff.
No, that's okay.
I do, but I'm sorry. The dragon I wanted is
that's insane.
Cover.
The reverse contrast of Iron Falcon is so distinct too.
And that was partly my idea too. I told Al when he did it, I said I need something with a dark background to go on a dark cover, and so he did it that way. And then I could just meld it right into the black cover and get that.
Mm-hmm.
I had about the same time gone through the fight of getting a book published on DriveThroughRPG. They could not get my colors right. They wanted a color separation. I barely understand what they wanted me to do. I finally got the Basic Fantasy core rules to work. That's why there's nothing else out there. Core rules and the field guide was it. Because it was too much trouble to get through their dang cover. Lulu gets it right on the first try. Amazon gets it right on the first try. Why is Lightning Source so brain dead? Somebody explain that to me. But anyway, so I did a black and white cover. They can't possibly get that wrong. And I put it out there, and it didn't draw a lot of attention for quite a while because it wasn't really what it was for. I mean, I didn't write it thinking I wanted to run the game or that it was a game I wanted to run. I wanted to understand it. Now, Simon Bull, one of the creators of Delving Deeper, gave me didn't write any of the material, but he gave me a lot of assistance in understanding how the original game works. And I got a video about that on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I'm not going to rehash all that here. I did learn that game, before the first supplement came out, is not actually a game I want to run. I don't even think I want to play it. But now I understand what they mean when they say that the thief broke the game. Why the old grognards who like the very first rules, you got to watch the video.
Yeah.
Because it's a long explanation. But anyway, that's how I wrote it. I wrote it for spite. And then it sat, and I'd run it at conventions occasionally. I've got one set of adventures for it. I ran Dragon of Doncaster once, and it was a complete debacle on the part of the players. Dragon of Doncaster has more than one big bad in the same dungeon. Okay. And the party just fell apart. They couldn't even decide which one they wanted to fight or who they wanted to ally with. So anyway, so then I went on for a while with that and kind of ignored it. And then I got this idea for what if a campaign took place in the year 1975 with D&D monsters, not necessarily D&D monsters, but classic style monsters in the real world. Now that took a lot of changes. The game couldn't work the same way that the original game worked. For one thing, you couldn't have that level of mortality. It had to be more durable. So I had to write alternate rules for that to make the player characters more durable at low level. I make up for it by making them less durable at high level. They've got to be more careful when they get to higher level. They didn't just walk into a battle and wade through it, which you just don't want to do that. But that was Iron Falcon 75, and I went back to Al and I said, "Can you do a cover for me?"
I love that cover. I really do.
I told Al, I said, I want 4 player characters fighting a dragon. I said, thank you, Mage. I want to see the dragon. I want to see bell bottoms. I want to see an impressive cross on the chest of the priest, and the priest needs a baseball bat. we discussed it a little bit, and I said maybe a hippie chick doing magic. So there we go. And I said, and then of course the jock coming in. And I said the jock has a sword, and he asked me. He said, "What would I think about having a roller derby girl with a sword?" And I'm like, "I'm in. That's good. We'll do that." You
can't get more 70s than a roller
derby
girl with a sword.
We got roller derby. We got bell bottoms. He stuck a beetle in there at the bottom. You got to kind of look down there with the hippie chick standing on top of it. The thief, it looks like a scruffy, maybe a druggie, I don't know, definitely a hippie, and he is trying to reach under the dragon to take a briefcase full of bills, of dollar bills, because, I mean, of course, the dragon's hoard is cash. That doesn't actually appear that way in the adventure at all. It's flavor, but that was what I wanted, and he did that, and it's gorgeous. I loved it.
I like the way that the two covers meld. And if folks are interested in Iron Falcon or Iron Falcon 75, I did review both those games. Well, Iron Falcon 75 is more like a supplement. Is that how you would describe it?
It has a small amount of supplementary rules and a bunch of adventure materials. It really is kind of a campaign of its own.
Yeah, it's really cool. Are you going to go back and do more with it?
Well, that's a painful discussion.
Okay.
Because that falls into the OGL question. There is SRD text in the Iron Falcon core rules.
Yeah.
There's OGL covered SRD text that is not mine. That is Wizards. That if I want to remove the OGL from it, which I would want to do before I went forward, I would need to have the same OGL removal process done that was done for Basic Fantasy. We know better what we're doing now.
Right.
But the other thing is, it is a for-profit product.
Right.
So that means I'm going to have to pay the guys to do it myself.
Okay.
It's not a problem. I've got promotional money. I can pay them, but I haven't wanted to start that fire yet.
Well, and you were working on 4E, so.
This has been exhausting. From January until now, trying to get the Basic Fantasy rewrites done, getting all 5 of those books into print release status, dealing with consents. I've still got so many people that haven't contacted me about doing consent. I got one guy that responded to my announcement video. Appreciate that, but just one guy. So, so it's there's a lot of stuff that has to be done. I don't know if we'll ever see a new field guide. I hate to say
just because of all the consent you have to get from the artist.
Every monster belongs to its author. We did it that way, thinking that was installation. It's the same basic technique that the Linux kernel uses. By having too many people to get consent from, you can't ever get it relicensed.
Right.
You can't pay one person off and relicense it because too many people have their hands in that pie.
Right.
And that was the idea behind the field guides. Every monster belongs to its author. And now the problem is I got to get those authors to respond to me, and I'm just not having much luck with it. So
they're off in their own. John, you've given, even if he hasn't put anything out for field guide, John, you've given your consent to have your artwork for the 4E conversions of the game, right?
I don't need consent for artwork. The artwork is licensed to me, and it fall under the creative. It doesn't get
I think I already took care of all that.
Consent for content. I'm just saying, if you're out there and you're watching, be like John.
Yeah.
He gave consent. Be like John. No, it's all new. It's a whole new campaign. It's like Be Like Mike. We just did Be Like John.
Now you're making me wonder. I'm going to go down here and look and see. Yeah, there he is. There he is.
I think I was pretty early on that.
I thought so, but I thought I'd check just make sure.
Awesome. So, a couple of questions. People are interested in this Iron Falcon 75,
and I'm going to politely excuse myself.
You're out.
If that's all right, yeah, because I'm just watching the clock here, and
I appreciate having an opportunity to talk with you, John.
No, that's wonderful,
John,
and I thank Wes for having me on.
Thank you so much.
Get together again. If you join my online game, when next time I ask for players, you wouldn't have to be Forever DM anymore.
Well, there's that too.
All my players in my online game are DMs.
Okay.
I'm the exit ramp for Forever DMs.
Is that the one with Nicodemicus?
Yeah, he's not in right now, unfortunately.
I love him.
Player had real life things come up that prevented him from continuing. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
So if people are interested, go back. Could someone just subscribe to your channel? If you want to see how to.
Thanks very much, guys.
John, see you later, man. Thank you so much. We'll talk again in the future. But if you ever want to see how to run an online low-level wizard, he's absolutely perfect. It's great.
Nicodemicus is hilarious. I'm sorry.
He really is. He's really good. All right, so I'm trying to rejigger. Actually, you know what? I could probably just go up to this scene. I'm trying to rejigger so it's just the two of us now.
Sure.
and we will have some fun. So let's go here, add to scene. It's supposed to only be 2. Why are you there? Everybody's watching me do fun stuff. There we go. Yeah, we'll switch to that. All right, there we go. So people are interested in Iron Falcon. I'm going to have to stop soon too because I have like my day job to do.
Oh, darn.
For people who don't remember, I'm actually a pastor, which is fun. But people are interested in it. I thought that was kind of cool. So Eric kind of asked tongue in cheek, is the cash in U.S. denominations for the monster treasure or foreign currencies? What's the exchange rate in Iron Falcon 75? Which he thinks is a joke, but that's something you have to cover in the book because
one of the optional rules has to do with how to calculate experience points for cash, because that's a rule in Iron Falcon. Iron Falcon follows the old school rule of XP for treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And the rule is pretty elastic. I'm not going to go into it. You need to read the book, but the rule for a conversion is pretty elastic, and you can earn 1 XP per silver piece if under the right circumstances. It just depends on what kind of treasure you're collecting. We run it I've run it both with my in-person group and with my online group. I've also run the intro adventure several times at conventions. It's a blast every time.
That's so good.
We don't try to go dollars and cents on everything. These people have day jobs. I don't want them to have to keep track of their mortgage and their checkbook. We do that in real life. Why the hell would we want to do that in a game?
Right.
But I did it again. I'm sorry. I keep trying not to say 4-letter words.
I have my headphones on. It's the middle of church. It's
okay.
But
why would you want to do that in a game? You do it in real life. Who wants to deal with that stuff? So we don't run it that way. The players have their day jobs or whatever that they go to, and we don't worry too much about that. And then the other thing is that their riches that they may bring back from the dungeon, it's difficult to convert into modern money without attracting the attention of somebody.
And the reason why is that such a big deal?
How many old French coins can you take in and have them converted into cash before somebody says, how come you have thousands of old French coins?
Oh, wasn't it? But you pointed out in the book, it was technically illegal to have, it was illegal to have gold at the time.
Gold. That's true. People were not allowed to have more than a very small amount of gold for personal property back in the 70s. That's a rule that people now have forgotten, but it was a rule then. So they had to be careful about that. A lot of the treasure that they collect in the early adventures is silver or copper, which has very little value to them at all. But yeah, that's an issue that comes up, is the exchange rate really is a question. And spoiler alert, so I'm not going to do spoilers. That's my alert. The question of whether there's actually cash in a dungeon is left for the person who's playing the adventure to figure out. Can there be modern to 1975 monetary treasure in a dungeon? Why not?
There's ways it can get sucked in, yeah.
Iron Falcon 75 is always a blast to run the first adventure, though. I love running it at conventions, just handing out pre-gens and having the players walk cold into this world. It's proven to be more immersive for my players, for all my players, than anything else I've run. More immersive, more quickly, because none of us have lived neighbors to a medieval peasant.
Yeah.
All of us have lived neighbors to the insurance adjuster or to the secretary or to the banker or whatever. These are all people we know.
Well, that's interesting. For folks who play at the conventions, are you getting more folks who are, more our age, who are older and kind of would remember the 70s, or do you get younger folks going, this is kind of fun?
I get both.
Okay.
And I find it interesting that the ones who are younger, I would have expected them to have more trouble with it, but about the same time I was putting together the very first Iron Falcon 75 games, before Iron Falcon 75 came out in conventions as playtest. Okay. Before Stranger Things hit TV.
Oh, really? It's that old?
It's older than Stranger Things. It wasn't. Okay. No matter what somebody tries to tell you, it's not based on Stranger Things. In fact, I've only watched the first season of it. It hasn't engaged me as much as it has other people.
Okay.
But it wasn't based on that. It was written completely separately.
Okay.
So since Stranger Things came out, the younger players have less trouble with it because they don't think think about grabbing their cell phone because they understand that those didn't exist yet. I mean, it's the 80s rather than the 70s, and Stranger Things, it's the same basic limitations.
Interesting. Okay.
So, yeah.
I had never even thought about Stranger Things being a support.
The one thing, though, that throws off the younger players is that they don't understand just exactly how crappy flashlights were back then.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You watch Stranger Things, those kids are not packing incandescent flashlights. Those are LEDs. I'm sorry.
Oh, the plastic ever-ready flashlights, they were awful.
But they've got LEDs stuck in those fake flashlights in Stranger Things because they light better. I mean, old flashlights were terrible.
Right.
People don't understand. They go into a dungeon with an old flashlight, dude. You are not going to have enough light.
Not at all.
No, the carbide lantern. I mean, my players have found the carbide lantern much more to their liking. So.
All right, now we have King Eric doing fighting. It's too Stranger Things is too nostalgic. I'll fight that one. That's okay.
I don't know. It just didn't engage with me as much. I don't know.
I got sucked in. I
did love how they ran basically 3 different kinds of storylines at the same time in the first season and then pulled them all together at the end. I liked that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't enticed into the next season. So
I'm totally hooked on it. I'm just one of those weird people.
It's okay. Everybody has their thing.
We watch it with my neighbors, and my one neighbor is hysterical, and we'll just scream. So we just make sure that we always I try to video while she's doing it. She's like, "Stop it!" So it's to me that's fun. But we all remember it. Like we all grew up in that era, so we're kind of like, yeah, we're hanging out.
Yeah.
No, which is good. Well, listen, we are at over an hour. Holy crow! It's an hour and 15 minutes.
You have me on your show, you will run over.
He does. But Chris, we've been trying to do this forever. I've been trying to get John on forever, so I was glad for him to be able to come on and do his contributions. I am so happy that for the way that project unfolded, the fact that it has finally been released,
yes,
and the fact that you actually reached out to tell me, hey, it's out. That
you asked me to.
I know, but you did it. I mean, that was important to me. So thank you.
You're not the only one who asked, but you're the first one who could get me on.
Thank you so much. Oh. That means a lot. I mean, I've been doing this for a couple of years, but it means a lot that you would trust me to come on and talk about that.
Hey, no problem.
So thank you so much. For folks who are interested in going to checking out Basic Fantasy 4E, go to basicfantasy.org. You can look at the forums. You can look at all the PDF downloads. And if you want to buy a book, even though if you look at the back cover of the book, it tells you don't buy the book, which is literally, it's not the greatest business model, but it's not a business, so it's good. Don't buy this book. Go over there and check it out. Join the forums and see what's going on. It is a big project. It's an impressive project, and we are very grateful that it's has what it done. My Basic Fantasy campaign is about 2 years old at this point. So it's been a lot of fun. This was the first game I got besides 5e when I rejoined the hobby. So it's very good. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. You said thank you to us both. But folks, go check out the forum. Talk with Chris on there. Go play basicfantasy.org. I will be back next week. And then I think I'm taking a break because it's July and I need to take a breather. And I do have a couple of videos that I have in queue that I'm working on. But until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.